All right, season 1, episode 10, first watch, rewatch, The Wire.
And we made it.
We made it. We're coming down to the home stretch. The Cost.
Yes.
This episode. I'm getting really excited just because there's so much storyline, and especially with this episode, so much starts to happen with huge stakes, and obviously the cost of doing of this business of policing, I guess, really, and just so excited for you to kind of see everything come together. Because in my opinion, if it doesn't come together at the end of the season for the viewer, the writing wasn't really worth it.
That's a good point. And they really, they built up a lot to this moment. Not you could argue this is one of the climaxes, right? I haven't seen the rest of the series or the season, but it just feels like this was like a big climax. A lot of different moving pieces built to this moment and what happened in this episode.
Yeah. All right. So let's get right into it. We start off with the cold open with Bubs sitting on the park bench, and It's very different looking Bubs, clean clothes. It's kind of daytime. The birds are out. The sun's out. And he's just watching the world go by, and things seem pretty cool. And then he sees a hand-to-hand off to the side, and a guy comes walking by, and it's like this shot like straight up. And the guy just looks at him like, "What's up, Bubs?" And to me, this is the scariest shot, the scariest character. He's not anything else on the show. He never shows up again. But this guy is like the scariest thing in The Wire.
Why is that?
I think one, just the way it's shot. It looks so dark and ominous the way he's looking down at Bubs. But also, I guess, just this idea that this evil is creeping into Bubs' life. And this guy represents it, because these guys go and do a hand-to-hand right there in front of Bubs where he was looking off, and that's kind of Bubs walking away. But like these guys, I don't know, just the representation of what Bubs is trying to get away from. These guys are walking to it, and the way that it's shot, it's just creepy. It's so memorable to me.
And I just remember feeling like being tempted. Like I believe I maybe get my scenes confused with this drug dealer walking by, like whatever the new top is, he's advertising it, but kind of perks Bubs up. I don't remember if that was a scene or maybe a later scene, but you can tell he's still like he's happy, but he's still got the bug, got the itch.
Yeah,
not the bug to be confused with the bug with HIV. Yeah,
and we do find out though it's only been like 3 days that Bubs has been clean, so hasn't even really been long.
Exactly.
So we get our credits, and our quote is, and then he dropped the bracelets from Kima. Comes from a story that we get to later in the episode. We start off with Avon and Stringer and Weebay. They're talking about the shootout with Omar from last episode, and Avon admits that Stringer had a good idea by suggesting that they parlay.
Yeah.
And this is like a term this is a term that starts getting used, parlay, calling a truce. And so that's what Avon wants to do. He puts Weebay to put the word out and confirms that as soon as Avon, feels comfortable, or as soon as Omar feels comfortable, they're gonna hit him.
Yeah. So the plan is to peace for now, to get him to be comfortable, take him out.
We also get Avon and Stringer talking about the following that the cops put on Avon, the tail that they put on Avon after the game from game day. And they're just kind of laughing it off. He's a word. I was going to go get a haircut.
I don't know. Were they laughing at all? I mean, I think Avon's generally concerned. They know because they change up, as they would say, right? They Stringer makes sure that Avon's not near anything anymore. No money runs, anything like that.
Yeah, I guess twofold, right? You've got the stealthiness of everything seeming wrong, and that's the McNulty side of the investigation. And then you've got what they're much more used to, the in-your-face style policing that Daniels did, and that's what they're almost able to laugh off. But you're right. At the end of the day, the consensus is that they need to build. He says we need to build a wall around you, B.
That's exactly what he said. Yeah.
And we're going to protect you. And basically taking Avon out of all operations of his own crew. He's not going to be handling the money anymore. That's going to be a Weebay and Stringer thing. And they're taking a beeper so that the only person that Avon's going to talk to is their New York Supply Connect.
Is that what that? See, okay, thank you for clarifying. Because when he said New York Supply, I didn't know if you meant he was supplying him with a new beeper with only 212 area code. So I was a little confused by that. So thank you for clarifying. That's what he meant by New York Connect. Got it.
I mean, that could be possible also. I could be reading too much into it, or it could be both, to be honest.
Okay.
I never really
when I watched the scene, I'm looking at it like, Stringer takes the pager, and then Avon's a little hesitant at first, like, so what am I supposed to do? And he said something like New York Connect, only something. So I thought he meant like, all right, you're staying off the grid in all of Baltimore. But yeah, I don't know.
I think the reason why I thought Connect was because he said that if any of these local cats want to get in touch with you, they got to go through me.
Okay.
Meaning that Avon's not going to be talking to anybody anymore.
Got it.
That's how I took that, which is something I think you see common in a lot of like gang, drug related shows, movies. There's always the heir to the throne, or the guy that's, I guess in the way The Wire puts it, the queen on the chess table, but someone that's always kind of like, at some point, the kingpin always has to build a separation between himself and the people that he works with, that work for him.
Yeah, definitely. And then that's what Avon's doing, is Stringer's in charge of it.
This is also, just in this conversation, one of those things where it hits me again that Idris Elba is British.
And McNulty, for the record.
McNulty. Yeah. The way that they talk, their accents, and it's awesome. And you forget that it's almost disappointing when you hear them actually speak at times, and you go, oh my God, this is not Stringer Bell. He sounds nothing like this.
Mm-hmm.
So we go to Fallon, who is agitated with McNulty and Rhonda, and he basically he doesn't want this case going on anymore. It seems like, how much longer? Another 60 days. And they're reminding him, like,
now.
Yeah, and they're reminding Fallon, this was your thing. Like, you kept this going last time. You're the one that called Burrell and reamed him out for trying to shut down your case. But he gets it. He gets the extension, so the case is gonna keep going. McNulty finds out as they're leaving from Rhonda that there's something more at play here, and that Fallon's job could be at stake. He's apparently up for election.
Right, he's not on the poster. Yep.
Which means I guess he came in and took another judge's spot. Now that that term has ended after 2 years, and so he has to rerun for himself. And Rhonda says that maybe it's the company that he keeps, and maybe it's his relationship with McNulty, and perhaps this case pushing on against the department's own wishes that's keeping him from being allowed to run under the Democratic name.
Yeah, my interpretation is that, this detail and him working with McNulty is now, even though he's the judge and he's the one who got the whole ball rolling and we thought he was the top of the power chain, now we see that it's even deeper and there's another pool that he swims in, and his political career is in jeopardy now because of how much he's pushed this detail. Like, I don't know exactly who kind of, my first instinct was Rawls personally, and maybe you don't tell me if it reveals to be him or whatever, but my first instinct was Rawls, because he seemed to be like the one consensus person. Everyone was like, don't mess with Rawls. Mm-hmm. And he's kind of pushed back against Rawls indirectly with this warrant. So that's what I took from it.
Okay. We then get D'Angelo and Donette, and I guess they're kind of living together, or...
Oh, yeah, this is his rebound. Chardine. Did I say her name right finally?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Finally moved out. All right.
That's it.
But yeah, Chardine moved out, and he just kind of wants company. And he brought his baby's moms in. I don't think that was his first choice. Yeah.
And, we talked about it with the episode before where he's like eating a whole bunch when he's trying to avoid what possibly happened to Orlando's dancer. But he's just emotionally, he wears it all on his face. He looks like he's about to have he looks like he's going to have an aneurysm.
Mm-hmm.
Donette is going on and on about basically money and needing a bigger place and more furniture, and she needs a new bedroom set, and he just looks like he's not into this at all.
Yeah, I mean, the conversation doesn't sound stimulating in his defense, but yeah, it's clearly that he has his mind on other things, and then the very next scene he pops up with Charlene, right, trying to follow her into Orlando's.
Yeah, that comes up in a little bit. Yeah, but he heads out, and again, I want to draw attention to his clothes. I mean, this guy is just dressed immaculate. He's got the NYC red shirt on, but just so much attention to this guy's wardrobe. The detail is now listening to The Wire, and they've tracked the phone patterns to a number of an obscure location, I think out in the county or somewhere, and this is the stash house that they think that they kind of started tipping onto a couple episodes ago. And they try to explain this. Freeman's trying to explain this to Sydnor and to Carver, but it looks like Sydnor is the only one that really gets it. Did you get this? Because in these situations, I feel like they have to play the audience, and that's why we're getting all this exposition, which good thing we have all these cops that haven't worked these type of cases, or else we wouldn't know what was going on at all. But was this clear of how they're tracking this?
No, I actually was a little confused by the explanation because Freeman says it so well and so almost nonchalantly that I didn't catch it. I felt like Herc a little bit in this scenario, so I did have to rewatch. But yeah, explain for me, please.
Well, essentially, they're noticing that this payphone gets a call, sends a call out to this random spot. And it's happening kind of regularly on a regular basis. So what could be happening with them on a regular basis that they would make this phone call all the way out at this faraway location? And that would usually be like a re-up, right? Something. And always the number that calls back to the payphone, it's always the same number out by this Mondo Mart, a gas station or 7-Eleven type of shop. Yep. And so that's where they realize that, okay, they're making a phone call to the actual stash house, to the main stash. That's what they're doing every 2 weeks. I hope I explained that right. It's almost like it's not Herc not getting it almost makes it sound harder than it is.
Yeah. Because
it really is just as simple as they're tracking the timing that it's happening and correlating with other things that they know that are happening within the organization. That's when they're running low on their stash.
And we've established that Prez is really good at figuring out these patterns and these word games. So he probably, I assumed that him and Freeman together realized this pattern, and that's how they broke down this. So
that's what they look at, right? And what they basically find out though is that they're going to have to be the stakeouts on this, Carver and Sydnor. Herc is away for some sort of training. I believe he's made sergeant from this test. And they haven't really said
he's passed it.
I think he's passed. Yeah. I mean, just judging from the way that it seemed to go from the last episode where Carver was freaking out and Herc seemed completely fine. I don't know what that says for the test, but that's where it seems to be, even though they haven't said it directly. I believe that's what's going on. So that means that instead of having 3 people to do the stakeout out in this random Mondo Mart watching this payphone, waiting for the guy from the main stash to come use it at some point, both Sydnor and Carver are going to have to do it by themselves, splitting 2 12-hour shifts.
Yep.
McNulty, Orlando is still going through with this drug deal, even though Avon told him not to do it, told him in Michael Jordan terms, do your fucking job. And he's decided to still do it. And the whole thing to me is very funny. It's coincidental that the scene ends with Orlando getting laughed at, because the whole thing, the car, and they even call him later on pimpin' ass Orlando or something like that. He just seems like such a jokey character, and he gets played completely in this scene. I thought that
he's jumping out of his lane for sure.
Yeah, I thought that I don't know if was it clear that what was going on in this scene, because they don't really say it. Basically, Orlando.
No. I mean, we find out later in the episode that it was an undercover cop he was selling to. But in the scene, no, I honestly wasn't necessarily thinking of that. I thought that it may have been a rival organization that would have took
his money or something.
Yeah. Right. I didn't know what was going to happen per se. But I knew just the way it was set up, the way he was nervous the whole time, it wasn't going to be something good. So.
Yeah. So Orlando gets into this guy's car, and this is the connect that he was telling D'Angelo that he had that had some sort of New Orleans connect. He was told not to do it, but he's going through with this anyway, gets in the car, hands over the money. I guess it's a little less than what they had agreed on. And he says, if you do right by me, I can come back for more. And he hands him a bag. I'm assuming that the cop's badge was in the bag. That was what.
Oh.
When he hands him the paper bag and he looks in, and then they're just all laughing, I assume that it's the badge, and that's how he knows, hey, you're caught.
Oh.
I don't know. That's very movie or TV show like to to do it that way versus just saying, hey, you're under arrest.
Yeah, because you never know what the resolution is until later he pops up in lockup. So
we get McNulty now in the vacant looking for Wallace. Remember, McNulty heard on the wire episode ago that from Poot on the phone sex that he had to keep checking on Wallace because he was all fucked up from the stick-up boy. And so catching on to this, now McNulty is staking out Wallace. And in order to do this, he's going to have 2 patrol officers just wait in the vacants, wait in the alleyway. And it's kind of, I like this, McNulty brings them 4 crab cake sandwiches and a case of beer.
Yeah, I mean, he knows the deal. He used to be a patrolman in the West Side, right? So he gets it. And they're like, "You're all right, McNulty."
Yeah, no matter
what they said. Forget what they all say about you.
That old line, no matter what everyone else says. And in this case, we know that's probably true.
Very true. Yeah.
Bubbles is meeting up with Waylon, and they're just kind of talking about life. And this is really like the first sobriety lifestyle event we're seeing for Bubs. It's not a meeting, even though Waylon at the end does tell him you need to go to meetings. He's reaching out into, like, I guess maybe a sponsor.
Yeah,
in Waylon.
That's a good way to describe it. Waylon's kind of being his de facto sponsor. Mm-hmm.
But we learn a little bit about Waylon, that he himself has HIV or AIDS, the bug, as they call it, that he passed it on to his wife, and it didn't pass on to his daughter. Yeah. And Bubs asks him, how are you carrying it? It's like, again, another one of those terms. How are you going to carry it? How are you carrying it? And he says, as best as he could, and assuming that his wife left him. Bubs also tells Waylon that he's got a son. And the mother took him away, I think, to Jersey. He says that they went north, he says, definitely. But it doesn't even seem like Bubs he says that he didn't disagree, that he wasn't fit to be a father. And that's the life that we've kind of seen Bubs living ever since then. Lost his family and basically been by himself.
Yeah.
I find it interesting. Bubs doesn't address whether or not he's got the bug as well. We know that his partner in crime had it, but Bubs has not addressed it.
He had a strong reaction to when he had it too. So, yeah.
It's definitely something he's avoiding talking about or finding out, whichever the story's not allowing us to see. Bubs is definitely avoiding it.
Sure.
But again, it is interesting that he does tell him, like, you do have to go to meetings. You aren't strong enough to do this by yourself.
Mm-hmm. Good advice.
We get McNulty. Sorry, we already got that. McNulty with the cops. We get D'Angelo stalking Chardine. That's when he's waiting outside of Orlando's. Now, I know we've kind of talked about, well, the way that she left him was kind of abrupt. He did nothing about it. We've talked about the creep that D'Angelo has. This is really his first attempt to have any type of interaction with Chardine since she left. How do you think he handled it?
Typical, typical argument outside the club style. But I mean, I think he has to be smart. His character should be smart, which she never is, because Chardine's working with the Fed. They're working with the detail, not the Feds. Detail.
Yeah. I thought she did it fine. I thought she handled it like an angry, she didn't seem like overly nervous, but yeah, I don't know. He just, how I'm already feeling about D'Angelo.
Yeah, no, he's not a smart guy.
McNulty and Kima, they meet up with Omar. Omar tells them that he got close to Avon, and McNulty almost seems into it. How close did you get? But they are telling him, take this amnesty deal that has now been sent out there. Kima and McNulty tell him that's your best bet, is to take this parlay. And he's thinking about it. He's cautious, but he's also hurt because he's got that bullet wound from Weebay, kind of the payback for the one in Weebay's leg. Mm-hmm. Now Omar's got one. So he asked them, like, aren't you guys friendly with some doctors?
Yeah.
And so here they are kind of, diving a little bit deeper into the criminal world and now helping Omar. We don't see it, but it definitely happens. Helps Omar with this, escaping this shootout.
Yeah.
We get Orlando now in the Maryland State Police. And this is where everything we find out. The whole thing was a sting operation.
And that's the one question I had, because they showed him getting arrested, but I was like, oh, by whom? So that was very curious.
Yeah, the only way you really know is when you see it on the wall. There's a decal that says Maryland State Police.
Mm-hmm.
And right away, we find out that Orlando has given up everyone and everything that he knows.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because I think we've talked about this in the past, just as far as what Orlando knows and what he's witnessed to, even though he's just the bar guy, the guy that owns the bar, the clean name on the liquor license. But he was privy to a little bit too much information. And the first thing he does is spill it all to the Maryland State Police about, I can buy weight, I know this crew. But the Maryland State Police don't know anything about Avon Barksdale.
Yeah, he's not on their radar at all.
Not at all. So they're going to look in the system to see if anyone's working the case in an active investigation. But in the meantime, he's got to go to city jail. That's where Orlando has to go to.
And somebody notices him, who presumably tells either Weebay, Stink, one of those. Oh, Stink's dead. Sorry, R.I.P. Stink. Tells Weebay or Stringer.
Yeah, that is actually Marvin Browning. Do you remember him?
No, remind me.
He was from one of the first episodes that gets arrested for the hand-to-hands.
So he's the one that said, I'll take the charge.
I'll take the years. Yeah, he goes, all right. And they go, all right, what? I'll take the years. That's him, Marvin Browning.
I love that. I didn't know that, but I love that they're using the characters and it's all part of the story.
And so essentially, I mean, it really played, and we could talk about it at the end, but it really plays into how this all played out, in that Avon's crew is well aware of what's going on, and that at this time, they know Orlando's been locked up.
Isn't it interesting how, as an organization, right, as a criminal organization, there's value into having some of your soldiers locked up and arrested, because now you have eyes and ears on the inside. I never thought about it that way, but Avon is just, he went into that situation with Stringer knowing that someone was going to have to take a charge. And as we see later on, the fallout of this episode, and we'll probably talk about it more next episode, but the consequences of that illegal action, Avon also knows someone's going to have to take a charge for this.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting how that's factored into everything as a business decision. So.
It's funny, your loyalty in situations like this, in worlds like this, isn't just dependent on whether or not you're willing to shoot or die or even not snitch. It's whether or not you're willing to also go to jail and still stay loyal there. Yeah. So Marvin Browning is, when he catches Omar, catches Orlando, not only was he loyal enough to take the years, which were some years, wasn't like a 6-month charge. I think it was like 4 years or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was 3 to 6.
Yeah, he was going to take the years and still work for the organization in some manner.
Now, I will say we have to admit that him working for the organization inside protects him, too. We saw D'Angelo talk about that a little bit in episode 1, how there's wars inside, East versus West, et cetera. Mm-hmm. He said it's crazy in there. So, yes, you're right. He's staying loyal to the organization, but he has some strategic value to stay loyal because he's protected inside because of them. So,
sure. Like with any gang, once you leave, who do you have left? And in a place like that, I don't know if you've ever seen South Pacific, the movie,
no,
with OG Bobby Johnson, but that's essentially it. When he leaves the gang in the prison, who's going to watch his back?
Mm-hmm.
We should watch that movie. We get Carver and Sidnor. They are doing their 12-hour shifts. Carver is gross and disgusting. Sidnor comes to relieve them, and we really see kind of the effects of it. These guys are literally just sitting in a chair for 12 hours at a time, and when Carver gets out, he's cracking his leg, and they're just in a parking lot. It is not a glamorous job. You can see why Carver wasn't very excited about it.
Especially do it without Herkin cutting that shift in thirds.
Yes, yeah. And, just being by yourself, it's got to be even different than sitting on the rooftop for hours where you have at least someone with you.
In sunlight, and you hear the whatever birds chirping, at least. You're not stuck in a van staring at a Quickie Mart. So.
And nothing's even happening.
Yeah.
So Carver just did 12 hours of nothing.
Yeah.
We get the McNulty and Wallace just popping up. This scene just happens. Bunk walks in. McNulty is passed out in a chair. He's got a bottle in his hand. This is becoming a classic McNulty thing. And they just assume that he was just too fucked up to go home. And they don't even ask him what he's doing, why he's there, what's going on. And McNulty has to call Bunk over. It's like, hey, look, I got Wallace in the interrogation room. Mm-hmm. And so it turns out, I guess these cops found him, brought him in. He interrogated Wallace. Wallace didn't want a lawyer, didn't call for his parents. You brought up in a previous episode that you don't even think that youths or minors can be turned into informants when they were talking to Bodhi, that this wasn't even something that they would be able to do. And here they have now. McNulty has completely turned Wallace.
Yeah.
Add into the fact they know that he's an addict.
Right. And they also have him, going deeper into what you were talking about, they have him for that, connected to that. He has all the pieces for that murder of Brandon. So that's kind of what they're really parsing information from him about, and anything else on the organization.
And really the murder of Brandon and him being laid out, we've talked about it so many times because it was referenced the way that Brandon was laid out for the neighborhood to see. It was referenced so many times before it happened with Bunk with the mouse, with Avon talking about the way that deer hunters lay out animals when they kill their animal, their prey.
Yeah.
And this is what Avon wanted to send a message. And this message is now going to bring down the crew because it fucked up one of his soldiers.
Now, how do you feel about him protecting Wallace protecting D'Angelo Wallace, protecting D'Angelo? You know, we always saw their relationship was different than the Bodhi D'Angelo relationship or the Poot D'Angelo relationship. And Michael B. Jordan Wallace really went out of his way not to bury D'Angelo to the cops, and he almost gave him an alibi.
I think that I even gave it away a little bit because we've been talking a bit about different things that are happening between Wallace and D'Angelo and Bodhi, and the difference, namely, D'Angelo kind of coddling Wallace a little bit as far as, when Bodhi threw the bottle at Wallace and D'Angelo stepped to him, or we had a lot of discussion about when Wallace was outside the Greek and said, D said, wait, and you were attributing it much more to a monetary situation that he's bought, that Wallace's loyalty had been bought by D'Angelo because he had just handed him off some money. And I was saying that I felt like it was more exhibiting the trust that Wallace has, that if D'Angelo says, wait, then wait, someone's coming. He's not going to just leave us out here. So I think now, just in seeing how you're seeing it kind of come full circle, the way that he behaved in the interrogation room when they asked him directly about D'Angelo, you're seeing it almost in that way. And I'm thinking I probably tipped my hand a little too much, already knowing that that's how he was going to respond.
I don't think you did in terms of ruining the story for me, if that's what you mean.
Not ruined, but my opinion,
he did plant those seeds. So those were I see it in its fruition now. Like, they have a different relationship, and he protected him in that where he didn't really have to. So
yeah. So we get really at this point we've only gotten Bunk finding out that he's there and that he's all screwed up from the stick-up kid. We get a whole nother interrogation, which we missed the first one in the scheme of the show. It's already happened without our knowledge. And so we will get back to them in the interrogation room with McNulty and Daniels. The main stash is now being used, the main stash uses the payphone at the gas station. It's actually happening. This guy has been paged. Did
anyone else get anxiety? I guess this is for the comments now. Anyone else get anxiety there was going to be another, what's his name? What's the cop that's in McNulty's, Santangelo? Another Santangelo situation where they're taking a piss and they miss the stash house guy. That's what I was thinking immediately. I'm like, they're going to miss it after all this long ass shift.
Well, it's funny. You start to realize how important just sitting there is, how uninteresting it is. And especially, like I said before, you're sitting there all by yourself and you don't know what you're waiting for. You don't know when it's going to happen. It's not like he's supposed to show up. You're just waiting for this neighborhood to run out of drugs. That's it. That's what you're waiting for. And so at this random time, and it's not even like the crime happens at night. This is the middle of the day, it looks like, when Sidnor is still on his 12-hour shift. And just like that, this guy shows up at the payphone to call whoever's paged him, assuming Little Man or whatever. And they tell him, hey, When you going to get to us? I think he says day after tomorrow. And they call Sidnor. This is it. So he's snapping his pictures and he says, follow him. And he starts to follow him. And here we go. Sidnor getting to play his bum role again.
Right. So he takes a walk, cases the house a little, notices all this high-tech surveillance outside, and knows that, like, all right, this has got to be something going on with this house. It doesn't have a camera on every corner. Like, there's something going on. So
I wonder how long of a walk that was. It just seemed like they were walking to a totally different neighborhood by that point. I would have noticed, why is this guy with this 40 ounce in a brown bag following me still?
Yeah, he didn't look like he was in East or West Baltimore anymore, so the bum disguise didn't really make him incognito, but...
And we know it's not. We know it's far away, and that's what made it so suspicious, was this far away payphone in this town out in the county or wherever. We know it's nowhere in the city, which is smart.
Well, actually, did he have a 40 or was it just like a bag? I can't remember now.
It was a 40 that he took it was like in the parking lot, he just grabbed it off the ground. And
he's like, hey, at least I don't look like a cop. Probably what he's thinking. So this
is true. So this is when we get Marvin Browning catching Orlando at the
Sorry, Brad. I want to hit on something Little Man you mentioned, and I feel like as a character, he hasn't been as prominent as he has been in this episode, and the next one he's really important. So I don't know. Am I forgetting Little Man? Did we get an intro to him earlier in the season that I maybe went over my head?
Little Man was the guy that handed the bag to Day.
Got it.
Coming out of the building, just a soldier.
Got it.
I don't know if he had. I don't know if
that was probably his intro, because that was the first time I remember hearing his name. So
yeah, and then he also hosted the party for Stinkum's celebration where Orlando's dancer died.
Yeah. Okay.
So he's a guy much like Servino. That has some sort of access, but he's definitely on like the junior partner level.
Got it. Okay, cool. Yeah, because Little Man will be an important character later on.
Mm-hmm. So this is when we get Marvin Browning catching Orlando in jail and immediately calls somebody we can assume in the Avon organization. So at this point, they're up to date on what the cops know as well about Orlando. We get Daniels and McNulty now interrogating Wallace, kind of getting a rehash of what Wallace may have already told McNulty throughout the night. But this is where we get the confirmation, like you mentioned. They specifically bring up the Deidre Kessing murder, the tap, tap, tap. And right away, Wallace knows the story. He knows what he's talking about as far as being a woman that might have been murdered. And he, without hesitation, no, Dee was good. I don't know anything about that. In fact, I don't even know if Wallace knows this, but just the way that the entire thing played out with the payphones and the pagers, the only thing that Wallace puts D'Angelo in for is that he called D'Angelo and D'Angelo made the call to Stringer, but that D'Angelo never showed up at the Greeks with Stringer and Weebay and Bird to do anything to Brandon. Him admitting that he called D'Angelo and D'Angelo made the call to Stringer, they say pretty much exonerates D'Angelo from anything to do with this. Maybe they can get him for an accessory, but he never showed up. So I'm sure he didn't mean this on purpose. It's a 16-year-old kid, but the one thing that he kind of puts D'Angelo in for excludes him from a murder charge.
Yeah, he gives him an alibi. And I wanted your thoughts on that little scene where he is describing the murder. Wallace is very clearly recognizing that story as McNulty. Like, I feel like there's some eye contact between McNulty and Wallace where McNulty knows, Wallace knows, but he can tell he's protecting him. But maybe I'm reading too much into that scene. What did you think about the exchange and Wallace not telling McNulty?
Not telling him about the tap, tap, tap murder?
Yeah.
I think when he mentions it, I think Wallace is recognizing the murder.
Yep.
And I think McNulty's probably asking too much.
Do you think that McNulty recognizes Wallace recognizing the murder? Because I think McNulty is a great cop and he sees that in his eyes. But maybe that's just me as a viewer seeing it.
It's possible, right? If we're talking about good police and knowing when to push a witness too far, or forcing a witness, as we saw with the way Kima kind of did with Omar, into giving him the okay to say something that maybe didn't happen. Maybe McNulty knows when the way that Wallace is responding, not to push, because he might get a false statement from him, and that's the last thing that they need. I never thought of it that way, to be honest. I took it as Wallace wasn't shady enough about it to raise suspicion, or it wasn't worthy enough of a interrogation for McNulty to dive deeper.
Yeah. I think, I think part of that, also the part you said about McNulty knowing when to push, and clearly he said D'Angelo's good by me, he's always been good to me, so if it's going to jeopardize the rest of the case, I could see McNulty not wanting to push on that particular thing.
I think I also, when you talk about the similarities between McNulty and Wallace, or just the relationship between them, I almost want to see that they can equally see the good in someone. And so what Wallace sees in D'Angelo, I almost want McNulty to see that in D'Angelo, and not
I don't
one
think
of
he does at all, though, because he's a murderer at the end of the day, and he's an homicide detective. So I think he thinks D'Angelo's scum at the end of the day.
Yeah, I guess maybe even pity to recognize that D'Angelo is not high level, and he's not the ultimate target, that Avon is the bad guy. Avon is, even though I want them to like Avon too.
It's where everybody get along.
I know. Yeah, I guess I want people to like D'Angelo and to believe that D'Angelo is the person that Wallace is portraying him in his life.
Right.
So while they've got basically a case against Stinkum, who, although I guess now that doesn't really matter, they've got a case against Bird. They've got more of a case against Bird, Weebay. They've got Stringer now on the hook for this murder case. The one thing that they don't really have is something to do with Wallace. Wallace is now an informant. And they have nowhere to put him. They talk about, what do we do with this kid? They don't have any money to put him up. They can't put a kid in a hotel for 6 months and take him out of, he's not in school, but the state can't just hide him away.
Yeah, and they're trying to bounce. They're all trying to figure out, brainstorm, what do we do? How do we pay for this kid? What do we do with this kid?
And the only thing that they really can figure out is that he's got a grandmother, I guess, down by the beach or on the water.
Assuming it's like near Ocean City, Maryland, maybe, I guess.
Yeah, or Virginia Beach, or
maybe.
And this is the only place that they can find her. Just hoping that they can get in touch with her, or that Wallace can get in touch with her. But that's essentially going to be the plan, is to put him at his grandmother's until the trial.
Right.
So we get McNulty getting a call during this, and it's someone telling him that it's like an emergency court case, something. We don't really know what it is. He hangs up and he just says, I need a lawyer. And Perlman is the only one there. And Jay's like, hey, there's a lawyer. So he essentially grabs Rhonda with him. We don't know why. We find out that it's, I guess, a visitation rights hearing. An emergency.
They've been kind of been referencing this court case all season. Like, they talk about it with Bunk in episode 1, and basically, the visitation's been a back and forth thing with McNulty and his ex-wife. So this is kind of like the final straw, which, hey man, I don't care if it's our main character. I am completely on his wife's side, ex-wife's side. He's a horrible father for tailing Stringer Bell, for bringing Omar anywhere near your kids, for bringing the kids to a morgue, losing them in the mall. Like, I'm on her side.
Yeah, they specifically reference the front and follow. Yeah, the front and follow that the kids did with Stringer as one of the reasons. And then I think the lawyer says something like a few other. So you can only imagine everything we've seen on the show, these kids go home and tell their mom about afterwards. And so she doesn't want the kids. She wants like the visitation to be midday or something.
Supervised.
Supervised by her. And the judge is just like, can you guys like just talk about this amongst yourselves? Rhonda Perlman even tells the judge, like, I have no plan. I have no defense for this. I shouldn't even be here as an employee of the state. And the judge is like, hey, let's see if we can do something with our lives other than worry about the problem of the McNultys.
Yeah, that was interesting for sure. But like I said, man, I'm on her side. I don't think they have a talk after this, right? They they compelled them to have a real discussion instead of doing legal matters. But I think she's got a solid case. He's a horrible father. So.
Yeah, and you know, we can go all the way through it just for continuity's sake, but they talk about basically what we just did, that she doesn't feel safe with what the kids are doing with him, and he kind of excuses it like, I know the guy, and
I know the guy.
I listen to his payphone conversations all the time. And basically, you know, I wouldn't put them in that danger. Of course, he doesn't actually know what kind of danger he's putting the kids into. And they basically, because the judge has put the wife in this situation, she has no choice but to accept whatever he's going to offer. But it does seem like they still care about each other, because she asks about Rhonda. We confirm that Rhonda Perlman is the person, is the mistress. Yeah, that Jimmy had the affair with, and that his wife has pictures. Elena, she has pictures of Rhonda with Jimmy out to dinner and things like that. So she knows who Rhonda is. Imagine how uncomfortable now under that context Rhonda must be in that courtroom, not knowing what she's walking into.
Right, and we hear that Jimmy hasn't even informed her that the ex-wife knows. So it's even more awkward, and it shows how selfish Jimmy really is, man. He just pulled her in there, hopefully use her, and then didn't even tell her what she was walking into. So,
I mean, I harp back to what Bunk said last episode when he said, "You're no good for people, Jimmy."
Is there some foreshadowing here? Speaking of that, like, because he says, "I know what I'm doing. I know how to keep people safe." It's like, do you? I don't know, man.
Good question. Really good point. We get Carver and Sidnor bringing all the information on the stash house that they have with the images of the cameras, bringing all that to Freeman, and they're very into it. And their first question, like, we're going to write up a warrant, right? And Freeman doesn't even answer it. He just kind of walks away, and he goes to Przebylewski, who's almost seems a little teacher's pet at this point, and he's marveling over what Przebylewski has put together with connecting the properties. And Freeman tells Prez, you've got a what does he call it? A knack for the paper trail, I think he says.
Paper trail, yeah.
Yeah. A nose for the paper trail, I think is the right terminology. Mm-hmm. So he's like all into what Prez has followed. And they're really, like we said, it's the other side of the crime board now. It's the property board, the assets board. Yeah. And Freeman tells Prez, or asks Prez, like, are you ready for some street work tomorrow? And Carver and Sidnor are looking at each other like, the fuck? And he even says, like, I don't, they took my gun. I can't do anything. And Freeman assures them, like, it's going to be okay. Any ideas of, like, or were you thinking anything wild at this point?
No, but I loved it because it's like clearly Freeman has something cool in mind for you, Prez. And I'm just excited to see what it is. So
this feels like Mr. Wizard's world with policing, or just like when you get that really cool teacher that inspires and engages his students. Like, that's what feels like it's happening here. All these police officers are learning completely new investigative tactics. They're inspired. They're becoming better people. And it's all due to Freeman.
Yeah, man. Freeman is MVP.
So next we get Levy, the lawyer for the Barksdale, showing up at the jail. And Orlando wants it to be for him specifically, my bail, blah, blah, blah. Levy is just there to get the signatures of paperwork for the deed of transfer to the club and for the liquor license. And when Orlando, we've talked about this a couple times now, him being a front, the name has to be clean. And Levy says, right now, you ain't that. So Orlando has screwed himself out of the organization as the front man.
Yeah, it was a bad mistake Orlando made. And we see he tries to fight for his bail to be paid. And ultimately he loses that fight.
Yeah, Levy tells me, says that. And the way that he says it, right, they're very careful not to use names in certain situations. And what Levy says, is that what you want me to tell him? That I asked you to sign and you wouldn't? Like, he won't even say Avon's name.
Of course not, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Orlando signs.
So Orlando is officially not a part of Orlando's anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That should be on our RIP board for the week. Orlando's business in Orlando's. But anyway, let's continue.
We get Wallace in the police station. He's watching Senator Clay Davis, who we saw from afar at the fundraiser party that Burrell and Daniels
Was he
were
at the fundraiser? Okay.
Yeah, that's who, when Burrell says pop quiz, and he's like, oh, I don't know.
That's the same guy. Okay. I mean, just from having to do research for the show and tags, I know that's the she guy, but I don't know what that means or anything yet. So
awesome. So he is, I think that on TV it said he's like there for the mayor's re-election campaign or something like that. So the mayor, whom we have not met, is basically running a re-election campaign, and Senator Clay Davis is on that campaign supporting him. So this is what Wallace is watching on the TV when Daniels is getting him ready to take him to his grandmother's, and they have a quick conversation just about how much has he been using. Daniels is worried he's going to be sick that Wallace is going to be sick in his car. And Wallace tells him just a cap now and then, and he hasn't been injecting, just snorting. So Daniels, off the bat, already knows, like, oh, you'll be fine in a few days. But Wallace is definitely hurting.
Yeah, while emotionally and clearly it's taking its physical toll on him, doing all the drugs. So.
Omar now comes to do the parlay, and this is around a fountain out in very public space. Prop Joe is there with Stringer, basically setting up the premise of this, in that I guess Prop Joe guaranteed Omar safety as an intermediary. And the way that they portray this, number one, Prop Joe is making Stringer pay him money to help set this up, basically a fee. He says, I'm like a marriage counselor. And number two, Prop Joe acts like he's never met Omar before. And
that's key because, as we know from the previous episode, he's the one that got him Avon's pager number. So if you ever found out that information, he would have an enemy on his hands. They're already rivals, but it would become like an act of aggression.
Yeah. So on top of this, now we know that Prop Joe is not to be trusted. He is a slimy fuck, because not only is he lying, not only is he not being truthful about his relationship with Omar, but he's charging Stringer for it.
Right.
I thought that was also just a little slick thing to throw in there. They don't really advertise that that's what's going on, but that's just kind of how they put it out there for you.
And when I thought that, because when, I didn't know who was going to broker the piece, how that was going to work. And when I saw that it was him, immediately in my head, I'm like, man, you're exposing yourself as the person that gave him Avon's pager. But again, what you said, he played it perfectly, pretend like this is the first time. And now no one's none the wiser. So. And
Omar plays it the same way. He doesn't say, oh, hey, I know you and you helped me set this up. There does seem to be some sort of honor among thieves in this situation with Omar and Prop Joe.
Yeah.
Prop Joe's funny too. You ever steal from me, I'll kill your whole family.
Forgot about that. That's actually a good point. So
the Stringer,
more than a joke. We established him as a joke character a little bit, and he's obviously doesn't have the physical build of Avon, but he's establishing that he's ruthless just with that little line. That's how I took it, that he's somebody that'll kill too.
So now this leaves Stringer and Omar to have their walk around the fountain, and we don't know this at the time, but under the context that we find out immediately after, that Omar is wearing a wire during this entire conversation. Stringer is extremely careful with the entire conversation, walking around the water, so the sound isn't very good. And anytime Omar mentions Avon's name or any type of criminal activity, such as what happened to Brandon, Stringer doesn't even mention it, as if it doesn't even register. Even says specifically, I don't know nobody named Barksdale. He completely plays dumb and ignorance to everything, but makes it very clear that the man that he represents, Stringer represents, can't have his stuff taken anymore. And that's Stringer's main message to Omar. If you can find a way not to take our shit, we'll call off the bounty. And Omar plays along with this, but he throws out a little tidbit, and it gets a little bit lost because this is the point where we realize that the cops are listening in and that Omar's wearing a wire. But he starts to throw out, like, throw me some money for my retirement, $5,000. And they're saying, send it through Joe. And that's kind of how it wraps up, which is the kicker for Omar, we find out, for him to not be down with this parlay, because he's not going to pay him money.
So yeah, I thought the scene was really well done in terms of, like you said, Omar's on a wire and we don't know it. And you kind of pointed out how he's asking very specific questions. Omar comes back in the car afterwards, like, I tried to get what I can for you guys. So you're showing Stringer Bell's intelligence for not giving away anything. He didn't give away any information that can incriminate any of them. All he really did was offer him $50,000. I mean, there's not really a crime in that. Because it's not for exchange for any criminal activity or anything. So there's nothing on that wire. It's useless. So I thought it was beautiful how they built Omar as being really smart for asking specific questions. So, you know, this revenge for my boy Brandon, you think I'm gonna just walk away from that? And Omar, excuse me, Avon, damn, I'm getting everybody confused. Stringer says, I don't know shit about shit. I don't know anything about that. And then the one you brought up about, you know, your boy Barksdale, I don't know anybody named Barksdale. And they even reference it back in the van. It's like, how careful is
Stringer Bell?
Mm-hmm.
So we see, you know, we started this episode with them feeling like something is up, taking away Avon's pager, limiting communication, building a wall around Avon specifically and the entire organization, and going this far that even with someone like Omar, Stringer does not discount that people are listening and that Omar's working with the cops, which, when you think about it on the surface, if you weren't watching the show and you just see this character, you would think is ridiculous. But we know he's been working with them for a bit now.
Yep, for sure.
Omar is a straight up snitch. How do we feel about this?
I mean, I can't call him a straight up snitch. I mean, I guess you ran a wire, you are a straight up snitch, right? I don't know. He's a lone wolf, and he kind of has to do these things to survive because he has no soldiers. So, and Stringer Bell alludes to that. He's like, yeah, we could keep up with this war, but one side has more soldiers. So this is him proxy fighting. You know, this is him surviving. This is guerrilla tactics because he doesn't have the army that Avon and Stringer do.
And really, it's the same motivation that it started from a different place because it started from monetary issues, but it's the same motivation that Bubs has to snitch, and where Johnny doesn't understand why Bubs would work with the police. Omar's driven to the same, even though he's working with him before Brandon being killed is what turns Omar even deeper into working with McNulty and Greg specifically on this revenge path, that any means necessary, any way possible to take down the Barksdales, I'm down to do that.
I want to talk about that some more, but keep going because I think we get some more Omar and McNulty conversation later on, right?
Sure, yeah. We get Daniel's dropping off Wallace now at the house at his grandmom's and have a little back and forth. It almost made me feel bad for Wallace being dropped off, and then when's the last time you were here? Like when I was 9, like he doesn't
never heard crickets before. Like what the hell are those?
Yeah, never heard crickets. And when Daniels tells him, you know, crickets, and then Wallace repeats it, crickets. Like it sounds like a little kid saying it. It's
Sesame Street learning the word for the first time.
Yes. So I don't know. It always kind of hits me, that scene. We get now Chardine dropping off some drinks for Avon in Orlando's, and this is where they're talking about a little bit about the meeting with Omar, and I think it's $5,000 that he told him that Stringer agreed to give Omar, and they're discussing how that's going to happen, and Stringer throws out he wants us to go through Joe, and I think when they finally stop talking and ask Chardine to leave, give her a tray back. And she's trying to listen in on the door. Like she's now very invested in informing on the Barksdales at this point. She's really into this. And I think they said, we could tell Omar to come on down to the towers to pick up the money. I think that's like the last little bit of detail I was able to hear about this. But it definitely seems like that is a setup in itself, which we know that Omar is on to. So now we get Kima in the bar, and I don't know if I put together that how this episode happened in this episode. I just knew it was coming up in the next episode or two. But I said to you, as soon as this started with Cheryl and Kima and their friends at the bar, it's like, oh, here's another one of those episodes, another one of those scenes that we both talked about. We're not big fans of just the relationship. But looking back, a lot of these episodes with Kima feel like almost goodbye scenes.
I mean, they definitely use this to establish and continue the story of why she became a cop and her mentality. For me, as a TV viewer, it was a little bit of projection. Like, shit, man, we're really learning about Kima and why she loves it. What's about to happen to her? And that's what the feeling I got as I saw this bar scene with her.
Oh yeah, if this was Walking Dead, she definitely would have been eaten by zombies.
Mm-hmm.
This is usually the point when shows give you some detail that give you details you've been craving about characters many episodes prior, and they only give it to you because the character is about to die.
Right.
And that's what really seems to play out with this in retrospect, in that Kima starts talking about why she became a cop and tells the story. I'll be honest, the story is a little bit confusing to me just because I'm not sure of who she's referencing, but she talks about being a rookie and with her field training officer and getting separated on this chase and tumbling around with, I'm assuming, a famous criminal who then gets let go after the tussle and drops the handcuffs, or as she says, drops the bracelets, and that's what the quote is from. But I guess drops the handcuffs and walks away and says, "Here you go, Rook." And that excitement, that adrenaline rush is what makes her want to be a police officer. Is that how you understood it?
Yeah, and I understood it as like she was tussling with whatever crook that was, and then the veteran cop just gave her the cuffs to subdue him, and that was kind of like the last piece of the, because as a trainee, she doesn't have the cuffs yet. That was kind of what I took from the story.
Oh, okay. So that she and because said they were like fighting for their life, or they were tussling pretty hard, or kicking, a squirming, or whatever. And this famous cop must be what it is. That this famous cop walked up and dropped the handcuffs for her to make her first arrest.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
How I took it. Yeah.
Thank you for thank you for teaching me about this show.
Unless we're both wrong, but nah.
It felt incomplete to me, where I didn't know, and I was more focused on so much of the corruption themes of the show that I think I looked at it like maybe they let this guy go and he dropped the handcuffs at her feet, like, here you go, like, you can't arrest me, and that's what made her want to be a straight and narrow cop or an honest cop.
No, I definitely took it as like this was her first arrest, like this was her first, like official arrest.
That makes much more sense. So she does this and almost apologizes to Cheryl, and Cheryl kisses her right in front of the crew.
Man. Such a sign that something bad's gonna happen.
Mm-hmm. And that's not her first. That's not her first scene like that.
Nope.
We go to Chardine and Freeman, and they're having like lunch. They look pretty cozy, and they're going
there. Is he getting charmed by her, man? He likes her in those glasses. I mean, I like her too in those glasses. I ain't gonna lie.
He's definitely putting some game down. He's definitely, because they're not in the detail. They're having coffee. I think she's eating a grilled cheese sandwich, it looks like. And they're going through the mugshots, basically asking, did you recognize who was talking in the office? And that's when she tells them, I can't see without my glasses. And it's these big, thick, these same glasses that I always said made them choose her in the first place to be an informant.
And a big note of there is what you referred to earlier, is passing along that information about the 5G pickup at the towers. She passes that along to Freeman, which he then passes along to the detail. So.
Mm-hmm. Rhonda wants to run a sting now on this Barksdale crew. And this is, we get Prez and Sidnor. This is right before I skipped this, sorry. Right before Chardine and Freeman have this conversation, this is when Prez and Sidnor pick up the trash from the stash house.
Oh, so that was Prez's field duty.
That was it.
I didn't even realize Prez was in that scene, man. Good for him. He got out. Cool.
So the way this plays out, and this is, I always like little things like this that seem so simple, but the trash truck comes up and they take the previous house's trash, and it's just some trash guy. And when they get to this house, the normal trash guy just walks away, and up comes Sidnor and Prez, and they don't even dump the trash into the truck. They just pull the bags out and grab onto the back side of the truck and roll off. And this is what they basically bring into the detail, and all of the work, so to speak, is in the trash. The vials, the residue, everything is there.
Wow, that's pretty. Thank you for breaking down that scene because it was a little confusing. I didn't realize Prez was there. I didn't notice the two trucks because it was very cinematic the way they shot it. But I was more so captivated by that I missed the details of it. So as you explain it, I get what they're doing. It's kind of sloppy on their part to throw away all of their drug paraphernalia in the main garbage right outside. So interesting.
And this is again where they're talking about, like, we're going to want to write a warrant for this, right? This is their proof, basically, about this house. And this is where really we start to learn that they're going to gain so much more information off the stash house by not busting it, which becomes a huge point of contention for the show.
Right.
While that's all happening, we get the Maryland State Police officer who comes in to the detail, and there's a fun back and forth with him and Kima. I guess him and Kima had a sexual relationship back when they were both younger. And,
really?
So that's where, when she says, she introduces him and says he's 99.9% bullshit or something like that. And his response is, Kima's just mad because I had her when she was good. So Kima's response is, shit, you're the ugly ass motherfucker that turned me.
Oh. I didn't even. When he said I had her when she was good, I assumed he meant like a good cop because you know how she said she used to work in the Eastern or whatever. So got you. Mm-hmm. I didn't get that. Cool.
Yeah. And he basically lays it all out. And this is very entertaining because the pieces are fitting. The detail doesn't know that Orlando's been arrested. The Maryland State cop doesn't know, at least didn't know, that they were investigating, the detail was investigating Avon.
Right.
And how deep they were in. And so when he starts telling the story and things start perking up and he tells them, Wendell O, as in, oh shit, I try to buy from a state police blocker. And McNulty points to the board. That wouldn't be Wendell Orlando blocker. What he says, yeah, you're on it, which is another, you're on it. That's another wire phrase. Kima will use it later on too. But that's when everything starts to come together. Now, because of this investigative work where they're able to identify the nightclub and that Wendell Orlando is a person in this organization, they're able to know exactly what they can get from Orlando as far as information.
Yeah. Orlando's fucked. There's no other nice way to put it.
Orlando is fucked.
The detail aware of him, and Avon and the Barksdale crew aware of him. So
what we get to now is that Rhonda, because of all this information, wants to run a sting operation with Orlando. They want to use Orlando to get Avon and Stringer in a drug deal. But because everyone is well aware on the detail, they're well aware of what everyone's role is in the company and what people do as far as Stringer and Avon, and that they're not the actual hands-on drug people. The organization is deep. It doesn't seem like Rhonda can appreciate that yet and is saying, oh, let's just run this sting. And they're saying, how much drugs do you think it takes to get Avon and Stringer in a room? Because this ain't it. And they're very much against it. And Daniels backs his people and is like, yeah, doesn't look like we can help you with this. But as that's happening, Daniels gets a call from Burrell right away as this is going on that he's wanted upstairs. And they call it. They said, well, he doesn't miss much, does he? At the same time, Kima gets a page, and that's from Bubbles. Yeah. So Kima goes to visit Bubbles in the park and just hanging at this bench. And it's funny. Kima says, man, you got me coming down here on a fucked up day just so you can hold 10. That shit ain't right, Bubs. The dialogue is just so catchy. And this is where Bubs tells Kima, I'm trying to get clean. She sees it in his face. She sees it in his eyes because he's right away. I need a place to stay. I don't need $10. I need a place to stay. I need clean clothes. I need a roof under my head. And she's like, all right, how long you been?
Asking Kima to fund his rehab, to be his sponsor, really. Mm-hmm.
And he's not asking much. He's asking for a few $100s. He's just asking for a good start, I guess, so that he doesn't have to be in the basement of his sister's house. And Kima's in. She says, you ever think about what I'm going to do with a clean informant?
Right.
And she asks for a kiss. And this is another, it feels like a goodbye moment.
It does. It's a goodbye moment. And it's also a character moment where we build her up as, selfless in another situation. It's like she's willing to this criminal informant she's taking out of her toolkit now and giving him a better life. And we see how another officer would handle that situation in a later episode.
It's where she uses the phrase again, I'm on it with you. Again, we just heard it before, you're on it. So that's another, I don't know, maybe that's a cop phrase that gets used a lot. But she really cares about Bubbles. It's not a business relationship. She truly, truly cares. Like you said, other cops would not treat him this way.
Right.
Daniels is arguing now upstairs with Burrell and Forster the exact same merits that McNulty has basically been preaching the entire show, that there's no hand-to-hand or drug bust that's going to give us Stringer Bell or Avon Barksdale. Patience, investigation, and The Wire is what's going to give us the top dogs. And Burrell sounds like Daniels in the beginning of the season, by bust. It's what we do, right? The old school mentality. Even though they're making progress, Burrell is given this opportunity in his mind to get the biggest bust that they've been trying to get, make the judge happy, make this all go away with this sting operation using Orlando. Yeah.
And he's always been about Burrell. It's always been about the buy bust this whole time.
Mm-hmm. And he's very, buy bust. It's what I asked for when this all started. He basically reminding Daniels, you're not doing what I told you to do. It definitely feels like Daniels is out of the ranks right now with Burrell.
Sure.
Omar now is going to New York. I guess McNulty's giving him a little ride to the bus to see him off. And he decides where he tells him, I don't believe, had they just said, be happy with your life, be happy we're letting you live, Omar might have believed that this truce was real. But Avon's crew said, yeah, come on down for $5,000. Omar smells it as a setup. He's not even going to entertain it. He's just going to leave and ask McNulty for some money.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting that it was the offer that Omar himself made, that he's a smart guy. He made that extra. He was going to take, he says it to McNulty himself, he was going to take the amnesty, he was going to take the peace. But the fact that they were going to give him money on top, he knew it was crooked and he knew it was a setup. So.
And McNulty, last thing he says is keep in touch with my pager because we're going to need you for the Gant case, the state's witness where he's supposed to testify against Bird. That's not a done deal. The writers have not thrown that away. We're still supposed to come back to that. So Omar is still going to be some sort of an important character for that going forward.
And Omar is going to New York.
Omar's going to New York. The police are going through with this buy bust with Orlando for, I guess, $30,000 worth of drugs. And Kima is going to be in the back seat because there's a real strong, fear with the DEA, who's also in on this. They're providing the money. They need to keep eyes on the drugs or on the money at all times. And that's what Kima's role is basically to be the bank. Half the money is hers, is what Orlando says, and he needs money to pay the bondsman. And so basically the girlfriend is helping Orlando front this cash so that he can in turn buy drugs and flip it to pay for his bail or his bond.
Right. So as you mentioned, the DEA's involved. They fronted the cash for the buy. So he's heavily invested in the safety of that cash for the sting operation.
McNulty looks really uneasy when they're all walking out. His eyes are going crazy. He's leaning on the filing cabinet, and he just doesn't look right about this situation.
And I made the little quip when we were watching this. It's the first mission that McNulty's actually suited up for. So he's actually coming out in the field for a change. For one of these busts.
Bubs is trying to make it another night, and it seems like, I guess, like I said before, I guess he just waits all night until it's time to go into his sister's basement. But it looks like this is the hardest time at nighttime. And again, it feels scary for him. And he's trying not to relapse.
Right.
Which he doesn't. He fights it off and keeps on walking, I guess goes back home. Now we actually get to the big scene here. And it's just, this is how the show closes out. It's Orlando and Kima picking up Servino, and that's the deal, that Servino is selling them the drugs. Servino turns up the radio. Kima's in the back seat. she's trying to bring up in casual conversation about where they are. I need to get cigarettes if we're going to go by here, whatever.
That was a really bad job, honestly, when she was like, since we're on block, blah, 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 baby, give me some cigarette. It felt very police, like how a police would do it.
And Savino turns up. That's when he even looks back and turns up the radio more. They pull up to this random place, and he leaves the money in the car, says, don't fuck with the count, says, I'll be right back, presumably to get the drugs. And Kima is trying to give the location from the back seat, but she's not really sure where she is. She thinks she knows. She's giving a general idea. As she's talking about this and she says something does not seem right. They see dark shadows going across the wall. And that's when she's reaching for her gun and shots start firing out. She's telling everyone on the radio because the car is wired. Shots fired. I think I'm at so-and-so location. Before she can really get a grasp on where they are or even get a grasp on her gun, as we find out the gun has fallen into the back of the seat from where she had originally taped it up front. She can't get her gun either to defend herself, and she stops talking. And that is when everyone crashes to the scene, basically trying to get a hold of this thing, but no one knows where she is. And so we've got a helicopter in the sky, and there's just lots of noise and sirens, and everyone is trying to find her. Eventually, we get to the car, Orlando's car. We see Orlando is dead in the front seat, and McNulty and Daniels are the first ones to arrive, and McNulty pulls her from the car, bleeding, starts administering mouth to mouth. Daniels is screaming into the walkie-talkie. Carver is freaking out, breaking down, crying. Sidner is mouth wide open, shocked. It's just a mess, and everyone can't believe that this just happened.
I'll say on a terms of just like scale, this is one of the most action-packed scenes so far because, you know, it's just, you have this race to find Kima, right? You got the tension of what happened on the radio. You got the helicopter shots. I thought it was just really well done and showed. It created a sense of urgency as to like what's going on in that scenario. But it was realistic, right? It wasn't Michael Bay. It wasn't sweeping shots. It was very gritty, and it was very true to what the show's been thus far.
And I was mostly impressed with in the chaos of that initial them finding Greg's, how calm McNulty was in that situation. He's just kneeling. I mean, there's all this noise. The helicopter's above them. Carver's kicking a trash can and screaming, and Sidner's not moving. And here's McNulty by her side, covered in her blood, administering mouth to mouth. Like his first reaction is to recover her from the car and try to keep her alive.
Yeah.
So that's where it ends.
So we end with Kima getting shot. And, you know, I said early in the game, she was one of my favorite characters. So it's definitely crazy to see. But I never thought this was a good sting operation. Like, Orlando was not a good person to use in this scenario. I mean, granted, we know more as the viewers than the cops do. But, I mean, logically, where was he going to get money to buy drugs from? He just got locked up. So.
Exactly. Well, and that's where they thought that the idea of Kima would come into play, that this idea of this girlfriend would, with the money.
Rent the money, yeah.
But what we know, and I had this conversation with someone else about the show recently, in that they thought, oh, this whole thing was stupid. The cops all look stupid. McNulty and Kima tell them this is not going to work. This is a bad play. This is a horrible idea. So for me, everything after that just bolsters what they were trying to tell the brass. Just the brass doesn't know enough to listen to them.
Yeah.
Right? This all falls on the horrible investigative techniques of their bosses, not the detail that was doing the work. This wasn't McNulty's play. This wasn't Greg's play. Daniel's backing his people. This wasn't his play.
Yeah.
This was Burrell, the DEA, the assistant state's attorney. This was all them wanting to do this. That's not even taking into account the fact that we know that Avon and Stringer knew days before that Orlando's been arrested and probably is snitching.
Right. Exactly.
They were able to provide no surprise to help themselves in this sting operation. So any, I guess, overall thoughts of this episode, questions?
I thought it was a great, season. It was a great season climax, a great, great action episode, a great action scene, a great point for us to, the chessboard has all been rattled now this week. Omar is gone, right? Because I was going to get into next. Who won this week? Omar is gone. He's off the board. He's in New York. So for all intents and purposes, it's just one-on-one versus the cops and versus Avon and them. And I think Avon and his team, even though there's a lot of surveillance on them, there's a lot of things, they're under the gun. I think they might have won this week just because, the Officer Greggs took a loss. She got shot. And that we can see from the fallout that a cop being shot in the line of duty is one of the biggest L's they could take. So.
And I think also a win for Avon is just the fact that Omar is gone. Besides Omar being taken off the chest, that's a minus for Omar in any way, is a plus for Avon. The whole reason for this truce that they were trying to work out in the first place, one, to trick Omar, but also because Omar was decimating their crew, their stash, their money supply had already come at the head of the organization. It was dangerous out there. They needed Omar gone just to be able to operate. The police aren't hiding in the alleyways to shoot them.
Right.
So, Omar is.
So I agree. Definitely a win for the Barksdale crew this week. So.
All right. So we've got season 1, episode 11 coming up next, The Hunt. And we'll have to find out what the fallout is here from
Greg's. Assume that Orlando's dead. We saw he was dead. So we're R.I.P. Orlando.
R.I.P. Orlando.
I never really liked you that much, bro. You kind of snake, but you had
especially after that's dirty how they threw him out on his ass like that, and Avon kicked him in front of the girls and gave him to do your fucking job, and then he gets killed.
Yeah. So he never really had any redeeming moments through the whole series. So,
and he tried to wrap D'Angelo up in that shit. Imagine if D'Angelo was stuck in that.
Got knocked for that after he just beat a murder. Whew.
All right, so season 1, episode 11, The Hunt, or the GIF episode, as we found out, and you called out right away. So
yes, so I finally make it to the famous GIF. So
is it GIF or GIF?
People have the creator of it says GIF, the guy who originated says GIF, but colloquially we say GIF. So
all right, so we'll get to that on the next episode of First Watch Rewatch, The Wire.
See you next
Leave
week.
Comments below.
Yeah.
Subscribe.
That's it.
Later.